Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka.
It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Baka. We are an anime podcast where every 3 weeks, we watch an anime and then we come together on this podcast to discuss it in a book club format. Then we turn our discussion over to you in our comment section or wherever you find the podcast to give us feedback and talk amongst yourself about the ideas that we come up with, where we're right, where we're wrong, and where we're wrong.
I'm glad each of us got one.
Yeah. Just keeping it fair.
Yeah.
This week we are discussing the anime Dawn of the Witch, and to help me do it, I need my co-host. First off, we have the staff of the White Mage. Jeremy, how you doing?
Doing pretty good. Just been like binging on silly, lighthearted movies because there's some weird work stuff going on. So, well, just you need something light to just kind of keep you happy and relaxed. So we've been watching all of the Despicable Me and Minions movies, trying to figure out like why that's become such a phenomenon nowadays that people are actually going into the theater like pretending to be Minions or something. I've seen so many memes now where like a bunch of teenagers line up and they go in to watch the Minion movie. I don't mind it. It's pretty good. It's not great, but the slapstick humor is really welcome. So that's one thing I do love about the Minions. So it's pretty interesting. I don't know about the continuity though. You know, I mean, the story just doesn't make sense, and the world building just.
There he is. There's my guy.
Now we need to get him to watch the Cars series.
Oh God. I don't think I could do it.
All right. We also have the staff to my infection. Jason, how you doing?
As long as it's MRSA. Yeah, really robust. Anyways, the beginning of the League for Path was really on fire, and I'm enjoying the crap out of it. But I did try a new game called Bigfoot, which is like a Dead by Daylight kind of, or yeah.
That's the game Markiplier has been playing a lot of, right?
Yeah. So it was on sale, so I got it. It's good for a couple of rounds. It doesn't have a good longevity, but if you had like a group of 5 people to play, that would be pretty fun. But yeah, and then I've tried my hand at Sekiro. Wow, like you think the skills would translate? Not so much.
Because it's so much parrying.
It's not just parrying, so there's no magic. Well, I mean, there kind of is. Anyways, I don't want to get into it, but the whole posture system is so much more important. So, like, health actually kind of doesn't matter in most situations, even for bosses. So, like, a boss will have, like, 3 red dots. You break their posture, do a kill move on them, and then one of the dots will go away. And as soon as you remove all 3 dots with kill moves, then you win, no matter how much health they have.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So is that a recommend or?
Yes. If you like From Software games, it is a fresh of enough. It's not like jumping into another Dark Souls or Bloodborne. It is its own thing. And so, like, you think there's a big difference between Bloodborne and Elden Ring. I think the difference is even vaster with Sekiro. But it's still, like, this same great visual storytelling, the same great world design. Like, you feel like a badass samurai. Like, it's really good.
Very cool. And my name is Troy. I've also been watching a lot of comfort television. I was sick, which is why this is a week late. Caught the COVID, slept a lot, and so just had on stuff that I could fall asleep to, whether I did or not. Watched like
Did you lose your taste?
No.
Okay, good.
I had a cold for all I could tell, but the test said I had COVID, so that's all. That's how my experience was, and like I said, I slept. One day I slept like all day, but I and I'm really frustrated right now. But I was like, I want to watch Dragon Ball Z. I want to go back to Dragon Ball Z. I even went out and bought a Dragon Ball Z shirt.
Oh,
If you're watching on
nice.
YouTube.
Nice.
It's good. I wanted to rewatch Kai with my son, but I can't find Kai anywhere. Like streaming, even it's on. It says it's on Funimation, but then there's like no episode there. It just has bonus content, and I'm like, where's Kai? But yeah, Kai. I can't find Kai anywhere. So I might have been watching Dragon Ball Z Abridged instead.
Oh, that's good.
And it's good. It's just
It's
so good.
good. Dude.
I wanted to do legit Dragon Ball Z, but if you can't, it's a good substitute. And
Cell
it's
Saga Abridged is probably one of my favorite pieces of media. Like,
Yeah.
it's just so good.
It's
So-
one of those few series where I've actually downloaded the entire thing from YouTube and have it archived, so I can watch it whenever I want.
That's smart. It is yeah, it's I've been very much enjoying my rewatch. We're in Frieza Saga right now.
Nice.
Okay, that was an awkward pause for me to cough. Anyway, moving
You have
on.
editing powers. Okay.
Yeah, but now I don't have to edit it. I can ignore
Fair.
It's just part of the show.
Love it.
So let's go and talk about the anime that we watched. That was not Dragon Ball Z, not nearly as enjoyable as Dragon Ball Z. Anyway, Dawn of the Witch. This was Jason's pick. So why don't you start us off with your non-spoiler review, and then we'll go through the rest of us.
This anime is tough. It's got this great underlying nugget of I want to know more. There's all these cool little topics that they bring up that are like, wow, that'd be really cool to see how these characters deal with this situation. And it's so surface level with all of its actual storytelling that I had a hard time caring about nearly everyone in this story. And also, there's a couple things, and I think this is a problem with most anime that have magic in them, especially healing magic, is that you lose this sense of risk. Because if I lose my arm and you could just heal them back, then why should I care when I see a character get their limbs lopped off? But anyways, it was fun, but I wasn't impressed.
Jeremy, what'd you think?
It just really came across as popcorn anime to me. It kind of felt like maybe there was some story before it that it was like meant to be a part of or something.
Are you just gonna leave that out there? You should at least explain what you did.
So we discovered that there is something called Grimoire of Zero, which explains a little bit more backstory on some of these characters. But you can tell that it would have been way more interesting to see the story of those characters, because I was curious about their story as soon as they showed up on the scene. But yeah, it feels like this show didn't land very well, and probably only exists because of the success of the other one. So that's kind of sad. I really didn't like the most of the characters, or at least a few of the characters. I really found annoying more than anything else. They're very, very boisterous and loud and obnoxious, and with little reason. Usually, like, I kind of like characters that have a bit of that. It's like an interesting seasoning to me. But in this one, it was just maybe it was just there was too much of it, and so it was overwhelming. I don't know exactly, but I'm sure we'll get into it more. But yeah, I agree with Jason. Like, there was a lot here that could have been really cool. The magic system has a lot of potential. The political intrigue, the story in general. There was a lot here that could have been cool, but I just didn't find it very enjoyable, or it wasn't executed very well.
Yep. Full caveat for my review, I was sick for like the first 3 episodes, and I've been on cold medicine for the rest. So that might have affected some things and my ability to pay attention. Just know that when we're going through the notes. But mostly I'm just echoing these guys. I saw a lot of cool ideas and really awful job of presenting them. There's like twists that are presented right away instead of building up interest in it or making me care about a character. They're just like, hey, here's this twist, and I'm like, why would you tell me this right now? It blew my mind, and it was just little things like that all throughout where the pacing felt weird. Where they were starting to focus their attention, the ending is really abrupt and just kind of like, okay, we're done. Like a huge amount of time supposedly passes through this, and we get no sense of that at all. It feels like 3 days, and it's supposed to be 3 years. It's really weirdly told. Now,
3 years?
Well,
Yeah.
that was the
I
assignment. 3
totally
years.
missed that. I thought it was maybe like 8 months or something. Oh my gosh.
I mean, it's possible they graduated early. They never actually say, but yeah, the whole thing is supposed to be a 3-year assignment.
Whoa.
But like Jeremy pointed out, we found out this is a spin-off or sequel to an original anime that we haven't seen. So if you're like, no, clearly that made sense if you knew the original content, we get that. You're right. We didn't. We're completely judging this as a standalone because we thought it was a standalone. And some of my objections criticisms definitely make a little more sense now, but it still wasn't well done. All right. Opening and closing. What'd you guys think?
Right off the bat, I need to preface that I found the animation lackluster. This felt like a very low budget anime. Even the parts where you could tell that they actually spent some more time on were pretty bland. And it showed in the opening. The song was okay. The animation was not great, and the visuals were just, it just felt like I was watching a abridged version of like 5 episodes. The ending was sweet, and it was fine. The fan service was fantastic. But beyond that, they weren't very memorable.
Yeah, I didn't really notice, and I didn't have an issue with the animation, but I probably just didn't notice it. As far as the intro goes, that was like a really forgettable song to me. It kind of reminded me of when you'd go to, like, I remember when I was a kid and you'd go to the local video store and just pick up whatever anime happened to be available because maybe there wasn't a big selection.
What's
and
a
so
video store?
yeah, I know,
Jeremy?
right? A Blockbuster. But it wasn't even a Blockbuster. There was actually a devoted, I don't even remember the name of it now, but they had a lot of anime in it. And I remember like trying to find titles that I knew nothing about and watching them. And half of them had songs that had almost the same tone and the same beat as this. And they just ultimately disappear in the annals of history, right? And I think, I don't know, that my opinion, I think that's what's going to happen with this song. It just really didn't feel memorable. As far as the intro's visual presentation goes, it was fine. It's definitely an introduction of all the characters. And the outro, it was fine. Dear girl, dear girl, fan service. Never thought I'd see it. Okay.
And here we are.
Yep.
Pass.
It wasn't fire?
No,
Hold on. But I don't think there was a rule we've ever established that
I know,
once
right?
per episode when you're asked a question you can pass.
Been nice to know.
Nothing stood out for me.
Okay.
I could hum the song, but I hope tomorrow I can't because it wasn't that good. And the intro was there; it did its job, and the outro was there, and maybe I think partly it's because like I didn't care about the anime. I wasn't growing emotional attachment. So when it's trying to be like, oh, these characters, I'm like, yeah, that's them,
Sure,
all
but
right.
then
Let's go on.
There's been some anime that we've rated fairly poorly that had some banger of songs in the beginning. So
Yeah.
I mean, had some
Okay.
great visuals, but it just felt like they didn't try.
Yeah, nothing that stands out or the. Usually I'd even try to find like one thing that every time I saw this it made me laugh. Nope, nothing. All right, let's announce what we're watching next for those who don't want to go on to our spoiler section with us. Our next anime is a generic fantasy anime
Yeah.
because we
Hey.
don't get enough of those.
Yeah, well, I looked around and I was this close to picking a sports anime, but then I was like, I can't do that to myself, and I can't do it to Jason. So,
What happened to Ninja Girls Finding Love?
oh God, that was a joke. I looked at that thing and I was like, I have to send this as my pick.
Every time.
I know I do.
Yeah,
It's
not
so fun.
surprising.
There's so much anime out there that I couldn't do it, so I have to share.
All right. No, the actual anime we're watching is called I'm Quitting Heroing. It's about he's not an isekai hero, but he's just
Nope.
like a fantasy hero, and he
Mhm.
decides, yeah, I'm done, and he goes to live with the villains.
He gets kicked out because he's so powerful that the humans are scared of him, and so he's like, fine, screw you guys, I'm
Go
going
live
home.
with the demon queen or whatever.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
they don't want him either. So
so
his story gets interesting, I guess.
it sounds that at least it has a interesting twist, and even though the title does tell you exactly what's happening, at least it's not like 10 words long that I have to write every time. So
Yeah.
I appreciate it. So that's our next anime.
Boy
if
from
you're-
Japan high school gets sucked into another world to quit heroing after becoming Demon King. Episode
Mhm.
2.
Or it could be Uncle from Another World.
Right.
I heard good things about that though.
I know, me too. I saw it on some of the charts.
This was a mom from another world.
Oh. Depends on the mom.
No, did you see that isekai with my mom has the 2 double hit crits? It's
Yeah,
not
I
really an
saw a
isekai.
couple
It's like they go into a virtual video game, but his mom gets the super OP power.
I did.
But
I
it
have no idea what she's doing.
But it has heavy leanings towards there might be feelings there,
Yeah.
and it's like borderline
no.
cringe and creepy. Yeah.
Oh no! God,
Yeah,
come on!
Yeah.
Wow.
Japan, we love you, Japan.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to our spoiler section. Let's talk about Dawn of the Witch some more.
Okay.
All right, so if you've watched Grimoire of Zero, you probably already knew this. This is a world where magic users exist. It's a fantasy world, and witches and sorcerers, but they mostly say witches. But it sounds like the witches did horrible stuff. They were just downright horrible, and so the church started combating them and fighting them. But then it kind of flipped, where it's like, hey, we're kind of burning witches at the stake, kind of thing, and the church isn't really the good guy. So now we're at the point where witches just want to live in peace, and the church has mostly forgiven them, but there's still a lot of resentment. There's factions of, okay, no, we're not going to forgive those witches. That every witch is bad. But even the witches are like, hey, when you're learning magic, we make sure that you're morally good because we can't risk having morally bad sorcerers and witches get powers. So it's a very post. A lot of stuff went down fantasy world, which I like. I thought that was a really cool setup. And that's about the last nice thing I had to say. No, I'm kidding.
I actually also really like the idea that they have to police their students to find out if the students are moral enough to have this kind of power. You don't really see that a lot, where they put the teachers actually put the students through some kind of test where the teachers are pretending to be the bad guys and trying to, tempt their students into joining them. That was kind of cool.
So we start with a shot of a young boy sitting in the rain out in the street, and what is a white-haired witch coming up to him and saying that she's gonna take him in or take care of him. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. And then we catch up with him. He's in a magic academy, and he's like the worst student there. He's being called to the headmaster's office. Everyone's pretty sure it's to be expelled because he's that bad. This is our main character, Sable.
Boring guy.
Or Sabe, if you're friends with him. You need to shorten Sable. What do you guys think of Sable? Well, wait, I'm going to stop you. I normally let you guys go first, but I just got to say, worst anime outfit I've ever seen.
Yes.
Oh
Totally
my God.
Yeah.
Why does he have a tunic that hangs off his shoulders? I've
know.
never seen that before. in my life. I don't look if you want to dress up, crossplay, whatever. That's fine. But my God, that looks terrible. It's
Yes.
so bad fashion.
Yes.
All right, you guys can talk about the character. I've got any important stuff done.
I was bored to tears by this character and frustrated actually because there was just a tremendous amount of potential with this character. I'm okay with him being the worst student in the class. I'm okay with him not quite understanding how to control his magic. And I'm really comfortable with his special abilities that we learn about. What I'm not okay with is it the effects of him wiping his own memory, which we'll find out later. And it's like, okay, but you've been in this school for 6+ years and you don't know what love is. You don't know how to communicate emotions. You don't know how to communicate effectively. Like, magic aside, you've been in a social environment for the past 6 years and you can't stand on your own 2 feet. It just didn't, it not only did it not feel believable, it felt forced, and also it made these comedic social encounters just awkward, and I just didn't care basically.
Yeah. I saw very much two things. One is the the typical role playing player character, right? Like whether it's a dating sim or whether it's like Final Fantasy VII, which is always known for this, where like Cloud doesn't really say much. Or the earlier Final Fantasy games or other RPGs where, the player character really just picks options, if anything. Sometimes there's absolutely nothing they say. You just click through dialogue that other characters say. This guy had a vacant stare like almost the entire time. It was so frustratingly boring. And the second thing I was thinking of is I normally love it when you have a character like this, especially just the fact that he's got amnesia and everything and he acts all robotic. That's pretty cool. And I remember thinking I've seen that a lot in female characters and I always like it. I think it's really entertaining and funny. But what's the difference? It just like you said, Jason, it's too long. He's not an android. He didn't just wake up. He doesn't have a lack of experience. When he cleared his memory, he didn't remove his ability to think. He didn't remove his ability to learn. He just removed what he had gathered up to that point, or maybe even just a span of a small trauma incident. Not everything before that, maybe. I don't know. Maybe he did. But the point is, this character was really annoying and bland, and their excuse for it wasn't enough to justify it.
God, he's so bland. He's just so bland.
Yeah.
That the thought I had the whole time. I also think one of the big problems is when you have a character like this that I agree with your reasoning. He shouldn't be this way, but they decided to go this route. You can't hang the show on that character. You gotta pair him with someone who's like living so much life that they balance it out. What was the one with the golem and the little girl? Right, so we had the golem and he doesn't have emotions, but he had the little girl with him who's like teaching him emotions. You balance out and you make that character interesting in their growth. There's multiple characters he's friends with, but the main pairing is an immortal witch who's basically lost all sense of her humanity.
Yeah.
So that's not teaching him anything. There's no one who's like, yeah, every day's a gift and you need to learn your emotions. There's just someone who's like, hey, I don't care if you see me naked, but don't touch panties. This is boring. This isn't interesting character growth. And also, he's not growing. He's not changing.
Right.
Even when he's like, I want to express love. I am in love with you. No, that's not growing. That's just doing the thing they told you to do. Dang it.
Yeah, he had no arc, and if he did have an arc, it was so minute that it was near unreadable.
There are characters I liked in this anime. The main character was a rough main character.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that pairing where you try to balance out his blandness. And I have an issue with a few of the characters where they are just really loud and obnoxious. And I wonder if that's why they did it. Is that was their attempt to kind of pair him with a different pacing and a different
energy.
tone. an energy. Yeah, but if so, that approach, at least for me, fell horribly. It failed really bad. Those characters, that just made them very dislikable to me. So yeah, they should reevaluate how they want to balance that out. This way didn't
One way
work.
to put it.
Yeah.
All right. Sable, he goes to the headmaster office, and outside the door is what looks like a little girl, but is actually a hundreds of years old witch.
300 to be exact.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. She's trying to get in, but the door is magically sealed, and so she's like, "Hey, you open this up." And he's like, I don't think I should. She's like, "I'll kill you if you don't." And then she gets attacked by a wolf man, which is, I guess we've already seen Kudo a little bit, so we know there's beast people. She drops her staff, and they're like, no, don't touch the staff, because he's going to pick it up. But this is the character Los, or Lu.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Witch of the Dawn.
The namesake of the anime.
The namesake of the anime. Thoughts? What are we going to call her? We can call her Los?
Professor Los.
Professor Los. Okay.
Yeah.
Los. What did you guys think of Los? Put some pants on.
Well, yes, definitely.
Yeah.
There again, just another wasted potential character. We've got somebody with 300 years of experience. They constantly are talking about their sense of dread whenever the staff gets more magic, because that means she's going to live longer, and she's just tired of living. Except, unless she's stating that, we have no idea that that's her intention, because she seems to be loving every moment of life.
Mm-hmm.
And also, like, she doesn't give any wisdom. She's just like, oh yeah, see that she's Captain Hindsight. She, like, everyone would go into a problem, she'd come save the day. Hey, look, you probably shouldn't have done that. I'm so intelligent. It's like, no, you're just Captain Obvious. Yeah, I think this was probably the character I was the most frustrated with, her and Sable, because this pairing had such deep lore behind them that we could have had a really cool expanding story, and all we got was bubblegum fluff. And yeah, anyways.
So we're off to a great start. The namesake of the anime and the main character are the two worst characters in the show. Yeah, same exact thing. And to your point of her being inconsistent about whether she wants to live or die, there's a scene where she's talking to another witch and she's like, "But wait, you're gonna die if you don't refuel. Aren't you scared of dying if you don't refuel?" Implying that, how can she be sympathetic to that unless she experiences the same thing when she thinks about dying? She doesn't want it to happen. So yeah, she's not a consistent character. This is the worst offender to me when it comes to being loud and annoying and obnoxious for zero reason, especially considering her age. Right? Like, you take a person who's in their late teens, early 20s, and they're already toned down from when they're a little kid. You take a person when they're 40 or 50, you're not going to see someone acting nuts, crazy, right? What happens when you're 300? Your life experience, the things you've seen, especially if you consider some of the stuff that she says about, I just gave my staff this bit of mana here. That's about 2 mages worth. How does she know what 2 mages worth feels like in her staff? Unless
she's killed a lot of witches.
Exactly.
No, she even says, "I've killed many witches."
Right. So, like, think about what that would do to the psyche. She's either absolutely insane, or she's very grounded and she's experienced a lot of trauma, and she's going to be sensible, and she's going to, be contemplative and guiding these kids because internally she's dealing with or has dealt with these issues and has moved past them or has not. But this idea of her being essentially a perpetual, I don't know, I'm going to pick a random 5, 7, whatever year old little child, in every circumstance, whenever there's an opportunity, she just reverts to this little child behavior, lays on the floor and kicks her feet in the air, which I bet you that's fan service. And so, I mean, it's just, she's a horrible character altogether in every way, shape, and form. I absolutely dislike this character.
You know who did this character better a long time ago? Beatrice.
Heck yeah.
I mean, this is basically a long-lived character, powerful character that wants to die and is performing some sort of important task.
And Beatrice is a lowly, an important factor to consider because that's
what I'm saying.
Fun.
They're nearly the same identical character in their own respective stories.
Concept, yeah, almost the same
Beatrice
concept.
was just done 15 times better.
Mm-hmm.
ReZero is a pretty high bar to set people.
That's
to, though.
Well, my point is that this has been done before, and you decided to do a terrible job with it.
Yeah.
Anyways, what'd you think, Troy? What'd you think?
I don't have the same amount of hate. I love the concept. Even like Sable's concept seems very generic. Oh, he's the guy he's not good at stuff, but he has unlimited power, so he could be the best ever someday. But I did like the idea of, I picked up this staff one day and I'm attached to it now, and it's because of its power, I'm forced to live to eternity. So now I'm just looking for the next fun thing, anything to help pass the time, because there's nothing else for me to do that matters.
Mm-hmm.
Cool concept.
Didn't she say if Ludo dies, she dies?
Yes.
Like she's just waiting for the staff to die.
Right.
And every time it gets more magic, it's going to live longer.
Which is why when Sable touches it and fully recharges it, she's like, oh my god, yeah. Also, it's really weird that they put like in this romance between Sable and her.
Yeah.
Which does not click at all.
Mm-mm.
I couldn't tell if they wanted it to click, because she doesn't seem into it at all.
Mm-mm.
But he's clearly becoming infatuated with her. I mean, he's literally saying, I want to marry you. And there's like he couldn't have chemistry with a chemistry set. There's no romantic chemistry between him and anyone, but especially her with the 300 years old. It's odd.
And even like the way that she handles it like a young person who's never experienced a relationship or love before. And if she's lived 300 years, surely she's experienced something to give her some sort of grounded way to respond, instead of just like falling over in her chair and blushing. And, it just didn't come off as believable. Even that.
Yeah, she's definitely not perfect.
No.
The kindest thing you've said so far.
Trying to be nice. All right, so they do get let in to see Albus Dumbledore. Nope. Albus, the pretty girl witch, who's the headmaster. Don't let the name fool you. They definitely did not copy that. And she's like, hey, we're gonna put you on a special assignment. We're also putting other people on a special assignment, but they weren't allowed to come here and hear about it. They're sending Sable to a village in the south.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it's basically a village for witches, or it's friendly to witches, and they just want to get it up and running to help witch relations.
It's deep in church territory. And
right.
Ever since the truce, the people deeply entrenched in the church still don't trust or see magic users as like normal people. There's still a lot of fear. There's still a lot of apprehension. So they're thinking, if we normalize it, if you guys go set up a shop and perform work with magic to show that it's just a mundane thing, we can normalize it. And that's why they're going there.
Very well explained. I want to say that was very well explained.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it was me and the fever, but I didn't feel like it was well explained in the show. I mean, they said all those things, but I felt like they just said them in a really weird.
That was not something that was not like a diatribe from somebody.
Right.
That was a collection of different data points.
I felt like I was like on 7 or 8 where I'm like, I'm starting to understand the relationship between the church and the witches. Because they're like, oh, the church is hunting us, but the school is from the church. Because the church is associated with the school in its own way.
Yeah, I mean, they even have like the church mage army right? Which is
Right,
really
which-
confusing at the beginning
Yeah,
because you're
Kudo's
like,
like, I want to join the church army.
enemies?
Oh no, that guy's from the church. And I'm like,
yeah,
It's more like two city-states that are at peace, but there's a tepid Cold War going on. And so even though a lot of times they'll refer to the church, they're talking more about the extremist factions that have broken off that are attacking them, because the church proper will not
get him.
condone any of that. And also there's lots of different archbishops that are very pro mage, so I think they use it colloquially in the show. At least that's the impression I
Right.
got.
And like I said, I did, by the end, I had it. Like,
Mhm.
I got the concept of what's going on. Okay, the church isn't involved in this. There's factions of the church that are, and the church is just kind of, oh well. Everything you said, yeah, I got there, but definitely not in the beginning.
Mhm.
I didn't put it
was
together
so
till the end of
lost.
12.
Oh, yeah. It took
No,
a long
because that ending scene at 12
Uh-huh.
had all the proper
Right.
pieces put together to form this story, and it was like, why am I just learning about this?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
That's what I was trying to get to.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like that was a valuable thing for the anime to obfuscate. In fact, it seems like the anime was trying to give us the setting the whole time and just failing. Otherwise, like, if they had modified the story in some way or told the story in some way where having these little reveals to show, oh, you know, there is a faction of the church that is extremists, and we didn't expect that, we didn't know that, but they tell you that there are church extremists at the beginning. So it's like they are trying to seed this information out, just doing a really poor job of it.
Yes, thank you. And probably some of that might be the fact that there is a original anime
Yeah, that's
that
true.
maybe got into all
maybe,
this, and they're
maybe.
expecting you to
so okay, I'll give you a great example with a scene that's coming up. They're going to endure a test, but unfortunately the test goes wrong because outside forces present a very dangerous situation. The audience never knows the difference between a test and a dangerous situation until it's later on. It's like, oh, it was a test. It's like, but you didn't do any setup. You didn't let the audience in on it. And so there was no stakes, or there was no, oh, okay, here goes the test. Oh, something's going wrong. Now I'm afraid for the characters. None of that ever happened.
I don't know if I minded that in most situations because, you know, I think the test seems like more of a test if I don't know it's a test that the characters are going through. So I didn't mind that part too bad.
The problem is I don't know which of the tests Jason's referring to because
Right.
they did it multiple times, and
Yeah,
that was
they did
really
a lot of
annoying.
tests. Yes.
They even call it out on themselves at the end. They're like, oh, we didn't know if passing was a test or not.
We're so
We're too
traumatized.
excited.
That's true. They did call that out.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, and if he has to do this for 3 years, and if he can get the village up and running, magically in 3 years, he'll graduate. If not, he'll be expelled. And Los, sorry, I want to call her Lou. Los,
Rocks.
she volunteers to be their field exam proctor,
Basically.
because they're
escorting
told.
teacher.
Yeah, they're
Mhm.
told the witch has left. Now, this ends up being a lie. There actually is a field exam proctor. Lou is just basically a substitute at this point. But she's going to guide them to the village.
And it sounds like she stole the job from the original, or was
Well,
that
there's-
made up?
It sounds like we're conflating two different witches. So there was a witch that was supposed to escort them, and then there was also supposed to be a witch at the destination that would serve.
I'm talking
as
about the one that was
teacher.
supposed to escort him, and she took the
Yeah.
paper from her.
She stole from her, and so she wanted to escort them, but she had no intention of actually staying and evaluating them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so she takes the job of escorting them, and she does it to see the Grimoire of Zero. If that sounds like an anime, turns out it is.
Whoops.
Whoopsie.
And Elvis is like, no one's allowed to look at that. But if you do it, I'll let you meet the author. So she's like, okay, I'll do that. So then they set out, and we meet the two schoolmates that probably also should have been in this meeting, but there's Holt or Hort. It doesn't matter.
Nope.
Says a who?
Big bosomed red haired deer girl.
Worst character design I've seen in a long time for a female character.
A little bit trying too hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like even her outfit looks like ropes are tied across her sometimes.
Yes.
And it's like,
Yep.
okay. Anyway, thoughts on Holt?
Yeah. She had some really good moments throughout the entire anime, where she's dealing with her past trauma and this idea of forgiveness. I thought that was a decent arc.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna have words. We'll come back to it. We'll come back. It's your turn. Your turn.
If I'm gonna put everything in the anime on a scale, in a vacuum. Anyways, and she was a decent love interest as far as for Sable. And I thought that, her being the offensive magic user was an okay choice, just because we've got this feminine, empathy for the thing that she's going to attack, but she's the only one that has any offensive magic to actually hurt anything. So that was interesting. But beyond that, she was just kind of forgettable, besides her character design.
Yeah. I love the fact that she wound up being a beast person as well, right? Like having the antler horns hidden underneath those little bonnet things. That was cute. That was probably my favorite part of her design, knowing that those were there, and that in later scenes she would sometimes have like little ribbons tied around them, and when her hat was off, and that was really cute. It was endearing. It also put her in a different perspective in my mind because endearing. Yes, totally intended. But it put her totally in a different category. Good catch in my mind, because yeah, I didn't. I don't know. There's something different about when you think of a beast person, like some kind of human animal hybrid, right? And that is just not what I saw her as at all until she revealed that, and it meant that she was just more like Kudo, and so Sable's the only real human of the three, which was just. I don't know, it changed things. It made it kind of weird in my head. Not a bad thing, but just kind of, I don't know, weird. It was always lingering there like, yeah, she's a deer. That's right. That's right. That was important. They emphasized it. They totally did. But I think,
have hooves.
I know, it's true. But remember what they said, that the farther down the line you are genealogically, the more diluted your deer blood is.
But the idea that she's this oppressed beast person because of her
I wasn't.
I mean,
yeah, I wasn't thinking about like the oppression side of it. I was just thinking of like, cool, she's an animal side of it.
Okay, fair enough. I didn't think it really affected her much, besides in her childhood when they sawed them off.
Right? Yeah, I do think that maybe that was part of her talent with magic, but then at the same time, there's a lot of beast people that didn't have a talent with magic, so maybe that's just her. Maybe she's just special. But she was.
Deer don't have horns.
They don't.
Bucks do.
I'm not a hunter, so I don't actually.
A doe doesn't grow horns. That's a buck only.
What in the world?
I'm trying.
Okay, that means the authors didn't know that either. That's great.
Guess, like a female moose. Does female moose have horns? That I don't know.
Maybe she's a moose girl.
But I know deer because I've been a hunter at times in my life, and yeah, if they don't have horns, you don't shoot. That's important.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. I guess maybe she's just a magical deer then, like magical girl horns. I guess I don't know.
Sorry to derail. Sorry, we can go back.
That's okay. No, that's very interesting. But she's, to me, the second worst offender when it comes to being obnoxious and noisy, and just when she doesn't need to be. But this is mainly in the first half. It does seem like she really tones it down about halfway through. But in the first half, oh my God, it's like every time she turns around, she's jumping around and leaping and just like squealing, and it's just so it's like you don't have
Just-
anything for the character to say. You don't have any way for them to express something interesting or funny or comedic, so you just have them be noisy. Or you have those stances where they like it's a shock stance where they do the, oh, hands to the face and mouth open, or stand and point and do something. I really hate those scenes when they're overdone. Like, I think they could be great if there's one or two of them in the entire 12 episodes. But for her and Kudo together, or Kudo, however we say it was incessant for the first half. And it didn't completely go away, but it did get a little bit better. I think I'm going to agree with Troy when it comes to the her forgiveness, because I don't think she should have been as capable of dealing with the situation that she was in at that point when she forgives, just because
I
of the
don't think
past
she ever
experiences.
No, yeah,
You're right.
That's actually my complaint.
Well, I don't think she can, and I don't think she should. So maybe we're on three different sides here, because I think she gave in too easily. I think it would have been off with his head.
Yeah, you're like a hellfire kind of guy.
Yeah.
I
mean, how does she forget that pile of bodies? I know she isn't forgetting them because they keep showing it, but like, the guy isn't. He didn't try to be good.
let me start with what I liked
Sure.
about her. Didn't really like the characters. I really enjoyed the way they handled her attraction to Sable. Well, again, there's no chemistry here, but that's Sable's fault.
100%.
I like that she's upfront, that she likes him. She tells him, and then when he doesn't feel the same way, it doesn't become like a big dramatic emotional point. It's just something she accepts. She even is like, "I'm trying to move on," and he says stuff like, "I love you guys," and she's like, "Oh, I have feelings for you. That makes it hard." But clearly showing that like I'm moving past this, and I thought that was, you don't get to see that a lot. I like that. My issue with her arc is that it's, hey, yeah, we're running into this guy who did the worst. He murdered your friends and family and
Children, friends.
children. Yeah, guys are the worst. And she's having to accept that they've brought him into the village to help, even though he's a villain. They're keeping an eye on him, but they're like, yeah, we're going to use him. And she's like, okay, but we're not murdering this guy who clearly deserves it. And that's her arc. But the end of the arc, I don't even care, I guess, which way they decided to go with it. But the ending of her arc is, I've decided that since you're growing a conscience and now you'll have to deal with emotionally hurting for all the things you've done, you surviving is the best way to torture you, and I'm cool with it. And that's her end of her arc. That's where she gets to. And I feel like that's just so cheap and not actually coming to a decision. Either, no, justice needs to be done, or I need to emotionally move on from this thing. But instead, it's this middle ground of, I've chosen that everyone else has decided for you is the best revenge.
It's a redefinition of justice in her mind. Right? Yes.
Just so that she doesn't have to confront the group and go against the grain, or deal with the fact that this guy is trying to find some sense of redemption.
I think it would have been better. I agree with you, Troy. I think it would have been better if he was constantly antagonizing her, and we come to find out the reason is because he wants her to kill him, because he wants to die. If he had made that clear and been a real thing, like, you know what, I just don't like the life I've lived. I want to escape this guilt and this terribleness that I feel. And then if she said, you know what, no, in fact, I'm going to make sure that you do live and I'm going to have your back, that would have had a much better payoff.
I mean, the anime has the theme of one horrible act creates more horrible acts, right? Everything started because the witches did something terrible, and then the church battling them did terrible stuff, and then they retaliated, and now everyone's trying to find a middle ground and a peace between all that. And it's the very much same with Tyron's character. He had a horrific past. He was turned into this horrible person, and now he has pass that on to Holt, and then what is she going to do? I just wish they had dealt with it.
Everything was so surface.
Yeah.
Like, this is the same complaint that we had in the beginning of the podcast, is that there's so much surface level stuff. They don't go deep on any of these topics, and it's really frustrating.
Except for there's one conversation where they're talking about bringing Tyrant in, and Zero points out what I just said, basically the theme. Look, I've murdered people, and like Lost steps up. She's like, I've murdered witches. Am I okay? Yeah, but you're my friend. Like, pointing out that there's never been a good side to any of these conflicts. It's just horrible things happening and create more horrible things.
Yeah, but the only rebuttal to that argument was Hort saying, but you're different. Instead of
Right.
saying, yes, but you chose to change. You weren't caught and then told that you would have to behave a certain way on penalty of death. And now we're supposed to believe that you've changed because of a penalty of death hanging over your head? Like,
And maybe that's why I'm so
argument made in
maybe
the other
that's
direction.
why I'm so disappointed is they brought up the subject like, hey, okay, here's our theme, let's dig into it, and then Holt at the end is just like, I've decided to just go with it and find a way to make it okay in my own head.
I want you guys to be happy, I guess.
No, you make a good point that they did this really interesting, like, how do we deal with this constant cycle of violence? And forgiveness might not be the only answer, but at least stopping the cycle is our goal. And then they just were like, oh, joke, and then nothing.
Yeah.
Mass dismemberment. That's how you bring peace to the world.
Yes.
Mass dismemberment.
An immediate healing rain, but mass dismemberment.
All right. So the other person that they're traveling with, who decides he's not going to travel with them, he's taking these two other students who are not given names. Yeah, they don't matter. But he is a lizard man named Kudo. So what do you guys think of Kudo?
Man, it just felt like a afterthought of a character. We need somebody to fill this role, and they're overly honest. Go. And he had, again, there's another character of potential. I thought he had really great impact on the story, or could have had a lot more impact. I did one of my more favorite scenes was him going, "Oh, I passed out. Why'd I pass out?" And like, "Oh, well, you got so hot-headed that you were just like, I'm gonna heal everyone in this room." You got 4 people in and passed. That was pretty great. But like, his desire to be a part of the army, his desire to help people, his tragedy in his past, turning that into something good. They touch on it from this like distanced point of view, and then let's tell some more jokes. I was just like, I don't need an anime to always be serious, but I think if an anime is going to be funny or kooky or bubblegum, stay in your lane. I don't know.
I fundamentally disagree with that idea that you can't mix it both, but it's a very delicate crossfire to walk. I do think it can be done. I think, this is an anime, but like Evil Dead is both funny and scary, and I think it does both very well. ReZero has really funny moments, but then when it's serious, it can make you cry or it can be horrifying. To do an anime, I think it can be done. This isn't it.
Right.
That's for sure. We've seen some anime that have really interesting non-human characters, right? Like, so we've seen Ainz in Overlord, where he's this big skeleton guy. There's another one, Skeleton Knight. Are there very many animes, or anime, I should say, plural, where the main character is not human, but also not a skeleton?
Oh, yeah,
Lizard Man. That is
Lizard
true.
Man. Yeah.
That is true. But supposedly he was originally a man.
Right? Yeah, that's true. He was. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do we know of any others besides him? I can't think of any.
Gunface.
Yeah, you're right. That's true. But he was also originally a man.
He was a cyborg.
Oh, you're right. He was a cyborg.
Yeah.
Oh God, it's been a while. We need to rewatch that. That was so good. That's what I remember.
We don't
I have
rewatch
different-
things.
Yeah, I have different memories of that anime.
Well, where I'm going with this is just I think Kudo could have been the main character if they tweaked a few things, and he would have been a more interesting main character, I think, than the main character that we got, Sable.
I'm giving you a standing ovation in an audio podcast.
Yay! But at the
Not
same
standing.
time, at the same, it's all lies. But at the same time, I also found him to be the third most irritating when it comes to being loud and obnoxious. But honestly, I think if the other two weren't there doing that, it probably would have been a perfectly acceptable dosage. Because it kind of fit his character better than it fit the other two. I see this guy, I love the fact that they called him out as Edge Lizard. Absolutely love that.
That's a good line.
And what I was thinking of the whole time is that he's basically just Lizard Bakugo, right? From My Hero Academia. He's got a chip on his shoulder. He's got to prove himself constantly, but at the same time, he's really not that bad a guy. He's a good guy underneath it all. But he wants to have that bad guy look because it makes him look tougher. He gets taken more seriously. And so I liked that, and I liked how it revealed that there was more to him every time that he exposed the motivation behind his actions and how he was aloof and how he was, like with these two guys that I mean, it's kind of tropey that he does it, but it's character building. The fact that he yells out, get away from me, you weaklings, you're just going to slow me down, in order to keep the bad guys from following his friends, get them to follow him. I say it that way because they're actually not great guys, but we don't find out till later. So, I don't know. I think there's a lot of potential for Kudo, and I think that a lot of the other decisions weigh him down and paint him in a much worse light than maybe he deserves.
Man, I really am bummed that you did he's Bakugo in lizard form, because it's 100% true, and it's like the one negative. Like when you said that, I'm like, oh, it is true. He is just kind of that trope redone. But I also 100% agree with he should be the main character. He was way more interesting. His tortured past and what I thought, especially in these first couple episodes, is that he has the ability to regenerate. So like he loses limbs and hey, I get my arms back. That's an interesting power.
Mm-hmm.
But also he's this big beast man, but he's not strong. And actually, that's his big thing. He's not a strong beast man. Compared to most beast man, he's very weak, and he's their healer because that's the kind of magic he excels at. I love that twist. I love that they went that route with him. This is a character I found very interesting and always enjoyed on screen. I love that his emotions show on his head, like his skin changes color, and that he is very emotional. And he has this hero, and he gets to meet the hero, and he totally embarrasses himself in front of the hero, even though the hero ends up just being a glorified mailman.
Yeah.
It's a bit odd. But yeah, I Kudo was my favorite character, and when you said should have been the main character, I actually had that thought in like the second or third episode. I was like, man, I kind of wish this was our main guy. I was into this story a little more. So that's why you got the sitting ovation. All right,
Take it.
So yeah, these groups, two separate groups, head out. Kudo with his people, and then Los heads out with both Sable and Holt. Eventually, after eating, and we need to talk about the staff of Ludens a little bit. This is the staff that Los has. It eats, and if it eats mana, it adds years to her life. And
it's weird that it also eats food. That's really, really weird.
Yeah, and it also likes to eat food. And it seems to have a little bit of personality. Like, hands will come out and do hand signs and okay. But yeah, just so, and no one else is allowed to touch it. If you touch it, it will eat you. So she's the only one who's allowed to touch it. And that's a big deal because there's the people are like, oh yeah, if you use this blanket on it, you can get around that rule. Then Sable gets sick while traveling. We find out later he was food poisoned, and we'll get to that plot point in a minute. And they eventually get to the inn, and Kudo's group is not there, and they realize he's being hunted by. They had a name for him, Inquisition, basically.
Mm-hmm. Oh, our arbiters.
Yeah, the Arbiters. Yes.
Arbiters.
And
Arbiters are super dangerous.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Just like
and
Halo.
Kudo had gotten rid of the other two guys to save them, and is being hunted now. And the Arbiters are specifically hunting now Kudo. And so Lois is like, I'm gonna go and save him. You guys stay here. And Holt's like, I want to go. I want to help. They do go. They find his tail cut off, and they pick it up because apparently it's really helpful for casting spells if you have
A reagent.
Kudo's tail.
Yep.
Well, it's not just Kudo's tail. It's like
But it's always
Recent-
Kudo's tail.
Yeah.
right, but it's recent. It's recent living flesh, right?
Especially beast man flesh. Or person, whatever.
Beast
Doesn't
person.
matter if it's a male or a female. Just get a chunk of flesh.
Oh gosh.
Holt realizes what's actually happening and gets scared and wants to go back. And Sable's like, no, I want to go forward. And then we see Kudo being hunted by this bad guy whose name is Tyrant. And I'll say, usually animes do this where they have like, hey, here's super evil throwaway bad guy in the beginning to show off the powers and how they work. And the fact this guy is actually, we're stopping here to discuss him because he's a character who shows up multiple times and has an arc, I found really refreshing. That was a cool thing this anime did.
Mhm.
But now let's talk about Tyrant, who definitely does not need a dentist.
He's
Totally okay for your teeth to be pointy.
been like shaving him down or sanding him
when he
down
was a
since he
little
was a
kid.
kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tyrant. He. You know, they make bad guy very bad guy, and he's done the evilest of deeds, and then they're like, oh, by the way, we're going to give him a redemption arc. I don't know. I had mixed feelings on it. I'm not particularly sold on it, but I'm also not all that opposed to it either. I think their execution obviously could have been better, but it was. I think his conundrum and his arc was probably one of the more interesting storylines in this anime. I don't know, Jerry, what'd you think about it? Because I'm just conflicted, I guess is a better word.
That's kind of where I'm at too. Like, he was my favorite character out of the characters in this show. But it's kind of the same thing because, like I said before, off with his head, right? Like, if I was in that room, that's what I would have been arguing for. This guy killed, it looked like an entire town, but especially the children. And he was openly saying, you know, he turned to her when she was just a little tiny kid, and he's like, oh, if you knew him, if you knew one of these kids that I killed, I'm probably going to kill you too, because you might be just as guilty as they are. Guilty of what? Being charged, not actually being a witch, not actually doing anything, just being charged. So, like, every way that they presented him, and I get that they were trying to present him from the only perspective that saw him at the time, which was Hort. So we're getting this perspective of a little kid in the most traumatic situation possible, where her friend is literally in a pile of bodies that's burning that this guy has butchered.
Ugh, yeah.
Right? So, but still, even though that's her perspective as a kid, it doesn't really change the fact that he's standing in front of a pile of bodies that includes children. So he's horrible. And he did not come here of his own accord because he wanted to change. He wanted a redemption arc. He came here because it was that or the death penalty. And again, even in his backstory, until later in the anime, we don't get any indication that he wound up joining the church for the same reason. All they tell us is that people that join up and become arbiters do so because they are criminals. And I think they mentioned on death row. And so we know that whatever he did made him guilty of a death sentence, or at least bad enough that the arbiters considered bringing him into their ranks of criminals, ex-criminals. So like every angle that you look at it, this guy's a horrible guy, doesn't want to change, is kind of being forced into a position where all of us are vulnerable because of him. What is the logical point of keeping him around? It doesn't make any sense. And then all of them bank on this sympathy of, well, we've all done bad things and we've changed. And so it bugs me because his story should have stopped right there. But that also bugs me because I'm glad his story didn't stop right there. Because he actually was a really interesting character. The way that they had him evolve and how he's like, there's a character that comes up and I don't really like her a lot. I call her the thirsty teacher. I don't really like her a lot. but she's basically trying to establish that she's not afraid of him. And so, he tries to scare her, which kind of makes sense. We see behavior and actions coming out of him they're subtle, they're believable, they're interesting. And then we see what his reactions are when people don't respond the way he expects them to, and how he turns into more of a contemplative character than pretty much any of the other characters, I would say. And so I liked him the most. He was the most interesting, but also I don't get why he's still alive.
Yeah.
I wonder if he's a beast man. Sorry, that last thing. I genuinely wonder if his teeth, because we never got to see his dad, I wonder if he's partly a beast man but doesn't know it. His nose, too. I mean, look at his nose. He's got a muzzle. It's really weirdly drawn.
It just looked like it'd been broken a couple times to me.
I guess that's
possible. I think they showed that when he was a little kid, that his nose got bent like that.
That's true.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have the issues you guys have, mostly because I don't think about things like that. I enjoyed that there was a character with an arc. And like I said, I was just really surprised that the throwaway bad guy that every anime has in the first episode or two to show off the hero's powers came back and became super important to the plot and was having an arc. And I was just like, that's cool. I also don't like the redhead teacher, but only because she just showed up for this character arc. They didn't establish she was part of this village or had this personality. She just literally walks in and she's like, hi, I will be here to help Tyrant have a character arc. And I brought him a sandwich. And I'm like, and everyone's like, oh, hi, character who we know and I've talked to many times. And I'm like, this is episode 8. What is happening?
Yep.
They're from the spinoff.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Right.
They're just a recurring character from the spinoff, yes.
My one actual regret with him, though, is that we never see him actually make a choice. We see him starting to grow a conscience. And so the reason I don't have a problem with it is, like, where does a retribution arc begin? And I have no problem with a retribution arc, or redemption arc, right? Redemption arc. And having one forced upon you, but then eventually you need to make that choice. And they even asked him, like, okay, but what if you're ordered to kill these people you're now starting to have connections to and feelings for? And he's like, no, I'd still kill them. Well, for this arc to matter, he needs to be confronted with that. He needs to have someone tell him, go kill the teacher or go kill the children, and him stand up against them and say, no, I've changed. That's what this show needed. And then I think I would be 100% like, yep, Tyrant was the 100% best character of this anime. They don't do that. The bad guys show up. He does a little bit of fighting like he's forced to do. And then at the end, he's just like, yeah, I'm going to stay in the village and keep being forced to be here. The end of my story. And I'm like,
the end.
That is not where your character arc should end if you're doing a full character arc. Other than that, I liked him.
Now, I wondered this earlier with another character, but I forgot to mention it. I wonder if, they're intending to have more, obviously they're intending to have more seasons of this. So he'll probably be a recurring character there too. So maybe he'll get that. Maybe.
It's hard to know, especially since the first series doesn't seem centered on these characters. The characters that are side characters in this were main characters last time.
That's a good point.
So who's going to be main characters in the next story? I imagine Sable and his friends are now going to become side characters that new main characters meet.
Could be a long time in the future too, since
Yeah.
the previous series shows characters that appeared to have been. Wait, no, that wasn't that long ago. The 13 thing that we find out about, they said it was like 6 years ago or something. It wasn't that long ago. I don't know why I thought it was.
Well, it's just speculation, really. Right?
Yeah.
So let's move on with the plot. Tyrant beats up Kudo, crushes his arms and legs, and that seemed really cool in the first episode. And then it turned out you could do that to anybody, and that's actually just a really good strategy when there's healing magic around. That's not cruel or unusual. That's just common sense.
Right.
It's like disarming your opponent.
Right. You'll get these back in about 5 minutes. I just need you to quit from running right now. So, Professor Lull shows up and she kicks his butt with her staff, but then Sable and Holt shows up, so he's able to take them hostage. And he reveals that Holt actually was sent by the church.
Dun dun dun.
What an awesome reveal for this early episode.
Episode 2.
Hey, if you're gonna do a traitor, let me get to know the character, multiple characters, and reveal there's a traitor, but don't tell me who it is, and make it like suspenseful. Instead, you're like, hey, this character's a traitor, but she feels bad about it, so it's okay now.
It's fine.
Okay. I don't care about that right now. Nothing changed for me in those past 5 seconds of information. She's still the same character she was. I didn't know who she was before, and you told me that she did something bad, but she felt bad about it, and she switched sides. So she's in the same place she was 5 seconds ago. Waste of a twist. That's what, when I say this does some bad storytelling, that's what I meant. That is the prime example of stuff they do. They're just like, hey, we're just gonna waste this right here and not care.
Yep.
They end up defeating Tyrant because Sable grabs the Staff of Ludens, which explodes and does its thing, but he doesn't die from it. And in fact, it's actually fully recharged. It tried to kill him, but he has unlimited magic inside of him.
And apparently it's not like maliciously kills you. It just eats all your magic and then all your life energy as well.
So
It's
now,
just really hungry.
when this happened, I was like, oh, so the whole point is he's just going to be like a battery for everyone who's competent. And I was like, that's different. But then they're like, oh yeah, but he'll start learning magic. I'm like, oh, that's not as fun. I liked him when he was just a battery. I also don't like but if we kiss you, it's even better.
God, yes, like we need the mucous membranes. It's not lightning. Come on, guys.
That is a stupid rule. That's a stupid rule you put in for one reason and one reason only.
And it got weird.
And it gets weird.
I did. Okay, there was one time that I thought it was funny, and that was when Hort was like, "But like, are you gonna kiss me to like give me some mana?" He's like, "No, why would I do that?" Oh,
That's not good.
yeah, I don't need to do that. Oh,
I thought it was funny that it feels good. So when the girls do it, it's like, oh, it's awkward. But then he gives it to Kudo, and Kudo's like, oh god, it does feel good. It's so weird.
I don't like this.
That was funny.
That made me laugh. But yeah, you could have. You could just stuck with the hand thing.
Yeah, hand would have been enough.
Yeah. So
you're my aunt.
Oh god. Yeah.
Anyways,
Make it even weirder.
They keep traveling. Holt tells Sable that she likes him, and she's like, "Aren't you suspicious of me?" He's like, "Nah. It was an episode 2 twist, and who cares?"
Yeah,
We're
even
past
Sable
that
doesn't.
now. It's fine.
The people that were traveling with Kudo get arrested. They regrow Kudo's arms. Again, I thought this was because he was a lizard. It is not. This is just what this spell does.
Yeah, because they showed that when he was in the caravan as like a slave traded beast child performing, they would chop his hands off. And yeah, I thought the same thing. Like, oh, that is dark, but really cool.
Right, and because he's a lizard, like, oh, that makes sense. It matches his beast form.
They even call it out, like, oh, did he drop his tail? Maybe that's why his tail is here?
No.
But nope.
I did get the impression he does grow stuff back anyway, but that magic he does it quickly. But then, like I said, everyone's growing back parts because of magic, and I didn't no longer knew if it was special about Kudo anymore.
Well, and he never waits either.
Everyone.
Yeah. Exactly.
We have this part of the episode where they stop at a bathhouse. Everyone sees everyone naked because it's an anime, and why would people properly respect doors or know where locker rooms go to?
Yep.
It's never happened in the history of anime. It won't happen here.
No. I did think it was okay. It was funny when Kudo took his towel to give it to Los. I actually thought that was funny. But then they're commenting on him and how he looks without his towel. And I'm like, okay, this is just kind of weird. Like, I didn't expect that. Like, this anime, sometimes there's lines that are just written in here that just, they don't feel like they're part of the rest of the anime. It almost feels like a different writer slips in and writes something down every now and then. It just doesn't work. That was one of them.
Eventually, after some more traveling, they get close to the village, and this little boy runs out screaming, I'm being hunted. And so they run away with him, and he hides them in a tree, and he's like, yeah, we can put up a barrier so they can't find us. And then this big white tiger guy does find him. Apparently, if you've watched the original anime, you know who this character was, and you're probably like, hey, that's interesting they're doing this. And we were like, what is happening?
Is this guy a
Right.
bad guy or a good guy?
But now that the twist has all been revealed and we're re-talking about this, I'm like, wow, they went to really weird lengths. Was the boy in on what was going on? He had to be. He knows.
Mm-hmm.
This is all just really bizarre setup of like, we gotta trick these kids. We're gonna talk about him, but there's 3 more characters to talk about. I want to get through meeting all of them, and then we'll go back and talk about each one. So, they fight the tiger guy, but they get away. The students run, and they meet. The kid's like, Father. I'm like, oh, that's his dad. No, it's a priest who wears. He's wearing a blindfold belt buckle.
It's literally a belt.
Yes. A belt around his eyes. It looks cool, but that can't be comfy.
No.
And he's like, oh, hey, I'm totally suspicious and maybe evil. Come with me. And he takes him to the village, and the people are showing him the village. They're like, yeah, there used to be a kind witch here, but now we've been taken over by this new witch. She doesn't let us leave. And look, she makes us hang dolls of ourselves from the houses to remind us not to leave. Here's where you'll be staying. And then they're like, okay, well, maybe we've been sent here to fail. Like this was all a trap set up by the school. So let's go kill this witch, and then we'll go back to the school and kill the headmaster. And Sable's like, yeah, I'm in on this. Let's go do it. And Holt gets upset. She's like, we could die. And he's like, I'm not afraid to die. And she's like, but I care about you, and I care if you die. So she runs away. But then we see her get attacked by the priest, who also knows that she was a spy. Literally everyone knows she's a spy. Like, Tyrant's just like a random dude who kills people for this army, but he's like, oh yeah, that's the spy. We got the spy bulletin monthly. It tells us all the spy names, and that's the one.
Yeah.
Everyone, and even the priest is like, oh, you were totes the spy. Whatever. So he captures her. They go looking for her. They track her to a cave. There's blood in there. Kudo's like, this is a trap. I'm out. He runs out. He runs into the white tiger guy who's like, hey, you want to join up with our group and join a witch blood cult thing? And Kudo's like, no, I'm going to fight you. And then the priest tricks.
At first he's like, no, I'm just going to leave. And then he's like, where's Hort? And the big mercenary's like, I ate her. And he's like, oh, I'm going to get you for that.
You passed, we should call it. He said he's a mercenary. And apparently that's his name.
Yeah.
Mercenary.
Anyway, priest tricks Sable and Los into the cave and seals them in the room with the witch. And the witch is going to attack them. And she's like, Sable, this was all for you. I was just trying to get to you. Everything was set up for you. And she's like, join me, join the dark side. He's like, I'll never join you. like, I knew your father. That's impossible. No, I'm getting this mixed up with something else. No, he's like, I don't care who you are. These are my friends. I choose them. And then Los battles her and then the witch is like, no, that's actually my spell. That can't hurt me.
Mhm.
And then she's like, oh, by the way, this was all a test. I'm your teacher. Also the main
And then he
character of
falls
the other
into
anime.
the Cloud City. Oh wait.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we got to go back to these three characters who were all setting up this. This is the first time that this was all a test. We'll start with the witch, Zero, who is the very kind and apparently aunt of Sable.
And apparently in another anime, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Main character.
Yep.
What do you guys think of Zero?
Interesting character.
Interesting character.
She
Would love to see an anime about her.
Yeah.
Has this happened before? I feel like we've done this before, but we watched a sequel before
Oh yeah.
and then found out. I feel like that's happened.
I've done it.
before.
I've picked a sequel.
Yeah, I would have loved to learn more about her. I wonder where I could find that information. No, she was I liked her. No.
It's
She
hard to
had
pick
her
what
eyes.
context to judge her
Yeah,
on, right?
yeah. It's just highs and lows for her because there's these really interesting moments where she does something cool and amazing, but then there's also like, does she need to be in this story? Moments. And so, like, yeah, she's the witch of this town, but she's also working with the academy. But she's really here because she's orchestrated this whole thing so that she can get close to Sable. But there's
She's
some
also the
tension.
witch that literally wrote the book on magic. Literally.
Right. And apparently now there was rumor that like there's like everyone else who can use magic, and then there's like these mages that can create magic. And apparently she's one of those.
I think
Yeah,
she's the only one.
Yeah.
And yeah, in this battle, they point out there's a difference between like the spells and the magic. Because Los is like, I'm gonna do a spell, and she's like, no, you're not gonna be able to do one of those spells in time. And she's like, yeah, but I'm gonna do one of the other spells really fast. And, like
And
there
then
was
she's like,
two different
well,
types.
you can't use that because that's my spell.
Yeah, that's the one I made.
Yeah.
Well, I looked up just because this is like the kind of thing that I'm always curious about is like what's the difference between sorcery and magic and how do they work and everything. And what it sounds like is just magic is the ordered methodology of using, mana that exists to be able to cast it. Spells are of course like incantations and stuff to organize that mana into something useful, but it's that group of spells that is called magic. Magic itself doesn't seem to be a term that they use to represent, ambient energy that's being, organized into something. Magic is just like the schools of ordered spells. And so when she's like, you used magic that I created or that I prepared or wrote up for you, it's literally just like you used my fighting technique against me. I know how to defend against that.
Okay.
But nobody else seems to understand how to take mana and turn it into something useful without going through the books that she wrote on how to do it. So it's like she discovered some kind of new way to use this ambient mana in a offensive and defensive and regenerative way. And everybody else is like, I have a talent for this.
I think part of the problems with her in the story is once they kind of settle down and it's established that they're living in the town along with Zero and Los seem to serve the same function in the storytelling. So I'm just looking for Zero's purpose within the story besides, hey, I was from this other anime that's attached. And also, I know your brother, or I know your father. Like, I'm unsure why she's there.
You're
Cameo.
you're 100% right. and I preferred her over Lou. So I was actually hoping
Yeah.
like Lois would leave and we could just stick with Zero, because I found Zero way more palatable, way more interesting. I wanted to know, why is her magic depleted? She's literally kind of dying, and has accepted it and is okay with that. And I'm like, wow, I want to know more about her. And then Lois is like, I'm 300 years old and I'm gonna stomp on the ground and show my panties again. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay. So you're right. I just was happy that the person taking this role to share with Lois was funner to watch.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
don't really have anything to add to that.
Yeah, and actually, as far as like actually teaching, Zero did so much more. Like, Los just like was like, "Ha! You shouldn't have done that. You should have done it this way." And we get the scene where Zero holds on to Sable's hand and like, "Okay, I'm gonna help you regulate your magic. We're gonna do a back and forth. Also, I need you to concentrate." Like, there was an actual teaching session. I was like, "Oh,
it teaches Holt to cancel spells.
Right." So it's like, yeah, Los, you can go. I know this anime is named after you, but like,
what are you contributing?
besides, like, her staff was more impactful than she was.
Yeah. There was it's really funny you brought it up that what did she teach them? And the only thing I can think of is like when they were on the journey to the location, she just like taught them how to have fun. Like that's what she taught them. She's like, oh yeah, they have memories, and it shows them like at a hot spring, or at a village or something. Like there's just like these different snapshots of them just like traveling. Like that's her teaching them. She didn't teach them anything.
She's like Robin Williams in Dead Poet Society. She's teaching to stand on the desks of magic.
Is that what it is? Okay.
No,
I don't know that show.
Sad. Dead Poet Society fans, hi. all one of you. One person got the Perfect Strangers reference. that
was enough.
All right. One thing so I'm going to jump over to Mercenary though is when they mentioned that Zero and Mercenary are in a relationship, I was like, that's really interesting, and their interactions were interesting. The way he like, as soon as he found out she got hurt or had fallen down, he like sprints, but then will go slowly up the stairs to act like he's not very concerned, even though he's got a basket of food for her. And I'm like, now that's romantic chemistry. Yeah. I care about these characters. What is this relationship? Can we talk about this? How did this happen? Yeah. Which apparently is the other anime. Okay. Any thoughts on Mercenary or the Priest?
Mercenary was my second favorite character, just because he was such a always playing it straight, always like evaluating the circumstance for what it was, trying to make the best decisions. Like he was the most grounded character, made the most sense all the time. Priest or Father, he felt like the most typical edgelord. Right? I know I already said edge lizard, but like this guy is such a like what is the term? I mean, emo. Like there's so many terms for it. Yeah, goth. Like I mean, just the way that he presents himself is so moody,
but he's living with a sexy little mouse girl.
I know, and the fact that they play the same card of like. Okay, so is Zero and Mercenary getting it on? I get that one, maybe. Okay. But then they're playing the same card with him and the mouse. I'm like, that is so weird. But, he was fine as a character. Just I've seen him before in every anime.
Yeah. He's like the I'm drawing a blank on the name, but from Jujutsu Kaisen, the guy with the blindfold, but not cool and funny. He's just the mystique. I'm all mystique.
Yep.
Even though I'm
mysterious. Mysterious about me.
Yeah.
I love the little mouse girl. She's awesome. A woman. She's an adult, but the fact that she's like ashamed of what she is, but also is the nicest, most kindest character. Like there was layers there, some interesting things going on with that, but we don't have time for that. She makes delicious food. and the priest likes her. Okay.
A lot.
Yeah.
apparently.
So they passed the test, and this is the first time all the students have passed in the single test.
I love that all the students is qualified to be like the 3 that we knew weren't traitors that could be thrown away because she did technically send 5,
Yeah.
but 2 of them were intentionally
get
supposed to
kept.
be ferreted out and captured.
Yeah. We should talk about that. This is part of the school's program. Whenever there's mages that are probably going to be very powerful, they have to test them for morality and make sure that they're not going to turn into evil monsters. And they keep saying, "Don't do evil things.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be like me."
Oh man,
Yeah,
are we
that's
only on
actually-
episode 3?
Yeah,
Oof.
no, 5. We're on 5.
Oh, okay, good. Oh, man.
That's actually a very important line from episode 12 is don't be like me. Don't do what I'm going to do right now.
Want to see some necromancy? Don't do this. This is horrible. This is morally wrong. Let's watch this dude get eaten by zombies.
Yes.
Jumped a little ahead there. Sorry. Okay. He's the
Spoiler
Dragon
alert.
Conqueror King shows up, but he's the guy who saved Kudo as a child, and he's his biggest
Yep.
hero, and he's just a mailman.
And this is probably where it was starkest as far as animation budget. The dragon descending out of the sky looked like something I'd see out of a 2010 Flash animation. Like and I don't mean to be mean about it,
What a
but I
burn.
was just so like, what? Nobody's trying here.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I definitely agree that the dragon was weird looking in all the shots. There was something about the texture, and yeah, it didn't look right.
Hey, you know who would have made a really good villain twist? Heath, the Dragon Conqueror King.
Yeah, it would have given him a reason for being there.
Yeah, like, hey, who could? No one was in the village that could have done this. Oh wait, there was the guy who flew in on a dragon, and he's Kudo's hero. And then finding out, like, oh, I hated that I saved you. Like, it's there. There's some breadcrumbs, and it didn't. That's just me rewriting. I shouldn't
Off-screen
do
guy we've never seen before.
Yeah, probably was never in any other anime.
that. This is where
What are
we
you trying to
find
say?
out that. So we learn Sable locked away his memories from a traumatic point. That Zero is his aunt, and Los decides, well, sure, she's going to leave, and she's like, no, I'll stay and read every book in this village, but really she just wants to see 3
I have a
kids.
quick question. Did he discover relation before or after mana transfer?
I think it was.
He found out after, but she already knew.
So still creepy, but more so on her part now.
Yeah, well, always
Well-
on her part. She didn't ask him.
Well,
She just
wait a
grabs
second.
it.
Isn't there a mana transfer when she's healing Mercenary?
Yes, but that's before
And isn't
he
that also?
he does. Yes, but he doesn't know that's his aunt at that point. He doesn't find that out till later when he gets the
Okay.
book.
Okay.
We know it. The audience knows it because she's
Mhm.
told Professor
Right.
Los.
Okay.
All right, 2 months pass, and so they're basically just doing magic work in this village. Hort does odd jobs. Kudo is a healer, and Sable is the battery who powers them up every morning and stays home and does their laundry. Which
I love
we
that
get a,
Holt is the handyman mage of the town.
Yeah.
we get a really long scene about doing girls' laundry and talking about panty
Seems
stains.
out of place.
This was so weird.
Just
And
like so
fluids.
much talk about panty stains.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Like
Dude.
I
Okay.
get the whole I get the panty joke as far as like, oh, you're doing her laundry. That was okay, fine. That's a funny joke, especially like Japanese panty thing, right? But then to linger on it and to just keep going on it and to probe it deeper and deeper. That's just why.
And just she just like is so intent on explaining to him why panties would be dirty. And it's like, come on.
Yeah.
We get it.
It was verging on gross. You know what I mean? Like
Verging.
more than just, well, I mean, it hit uncomfortable, but like verging on gross. So
I
weird.
think it would have been either funnier or more endearing if she just came to the realization that, oh, he doesn't find it weird, and
Mm-hmm.
that I guess we are friends. Like, I guess we are a unit.
And just
Like,
let it go and move
like,
on.
yeah, like
Yeah.
we're closer than friends. We're almost family. I think if they turned it into that instead of panty sweat fluid junk, like,
Mm-hmm.
how would you feel if some sweaty nasty guy was sniffing your underwear? It's like, okay,
There's also a weird disconnect because she's doing this while standing in her leotard that looks just like panties. Because it is a leotard. She's not in panties, but like she has no pants on, and it's like you seem like the last person to be concerned with this.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I guess for anyone who hasn't seen it, if you're just listening to this instead of watching it, I should just kind of describe that. The fact that her dress, her skirt part of her dress is designed in such a way that it comes up at an angle so that it reveals her entirely from about the belt down in the front. Even though it's a full skirt in the back. So it's just really weird. The way that they cut the skirt is like designed to be fan service even when she's just standing there.
And like we see her later in a full leotard, and that's when I realized, oh, that's a leotard. But she wears like a belt too, like a sash, so it looks like she's just in her panties out in the open, all the time. And then like she sits cross-legged all the time, jumps on the ground, flails her legs open, very fan servicey, but also a lolly and creepy. And I wasn't a fan.
No.
Now we've spent too much time on it too now.
I know. Just like the panties. Criticize them and then do the same lingering.
She tells Sable he has to go to the forest. The little boy leads him into the forest, but then gets them lost. The mice take him back to the church where he meets Lily and eats with them and the priest. And then when he's leaving, he sees Holt, and she had accidentally shot Mercenary with magic when they were in a fight. So he's hurt, and he has to go be a battery for Zero so she can heal him. And this is when she kisses him.
We should mention that she wasn't fighting with Mercenary, like not against him. They were fighting against other like wolves or something.
Right. She was trying to cast a spell to help, but he's like, "That's going to take too long. Stop it!" And she misfired.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of her flaws is she doesn't know how to like cancel a spell mid cast.
There's this big deal about like, oh, he yelled at me and he's very mad at me. And then after they heal him, he's like, yeah, of course I'm mad at her. I have to educate her. She's a student and I want to keep working with her. This is how I do things.
Yeah. But then there was the kiss.
Oh, okay. I mean, there's a lot of conversations after this. They're talking about like, does Sable spends all his time inside the house. Does he even want to be a mage? Should we just send him home?
I like that they explored that. That was actually kind of cool. Yeah. Just the idea that, that he was sticking around and not doing anything for, I don't know how long that was. It was probably a year or two or more. I don't know. But the fact that they probed the idea of, was it only 2 months? Oh,
we're at 2 months here.
Okay. The fact that they actually addressed that, like, we're going to kick you out. You're in your comfort zone and you're not reaching out. So do something or get out. And you don't see that a lot with protagonists.
Yeah. There's also a conversation here where Lois is like, hey, you banging the tiger? Cool. Then we
he's
see
got extra clothes here. Spends the night.
The school's decided to send down a inspector. It's the same wolf guy from the first episode. His name is Holden. And she's like, hey, I know you hate Sable because his dad killed my sister. But don't do anything crazy. He's like, I won't. Okay, I'm taking Tyrant with me. So they've captured Tyrant, he's going to use him to test these guys, which is weird because we know that going into this. But anyway, Sable goes back into the forest with the little boy. They're looking for. This is after there's some training with Zero, and she had passed out. So he's looking for flowers to help.
Yeah, red flowers.
They run into a monster who shoots spikes, and it stabs little boy. Sable has to rush him back, and Zero and using Los's blood Zero is able to heal him, and everyone passes out. And then
Actually, it's like, what? Why did she cut herself so deep that she just spewed blood everywhere?
300 years old. That's why.
Yeah, again, it doesn't make any sense for her age.
What's important is that they talk about how this is a remnant of disaster. So apparently during the war, mages had called in demons, and these demons made really nasty things, and those things are still exist in the world.
So
Where can
apparently,
we learn more about that war?
I know, right? So apparently, sorcery, because they mentioned sorcery a few times,
Mhm.
is specifically binding demons. So it's more like warlock, right, from D&D, where you're binding demons to do your will. And so, from what it sounds like, because I didn't spoil myself on Grimoire of Zero, I just read about the mechanics of magic. It sounds like that's what happened. 13 was a sorcerer, so 13 probably used demons to do this, and so the demons created all kinds of problems. And it seems like, especially in episode 12, some demons are still around and possessing at least Beastfall and maybe others too. So yeah, demons made these entities, and whichever demon made it, you have to know that demon's name to be able to make a ward against this, which becomes important in 12, which they don't tell us anything about until
Yeah, they did not. All right, so
Great payoff, by the way.
they have to
Yeah.
they have to take care of these remnants. So they come up with this plan, and they're like, "Hey, Holden, we're gonna leave you in charge of the witches and the kids, and we're gonna go off and like warn the other villages and figure out a way to deal with this." And so they leave, and then Holden, using like a remote control, releases Tyrant.
Yeah.
He has like a remote. Then he goes and he introduces himself to the students, and he asks Los to take care of the remnants in the forest. So she's like, "Yeah, I'll do it." And he's like, "Yeah, I'll give you access to the Grimoire of Zero," which is something he probably doesn't have the authority to do, but promises her. She goes and takes care of that, but it's also he can get the students isolated, right? Well, this line, they're like, "Hey," he's like, "Can someone show me a place to stay in the village?" And Holt's like, "Well, I could take you." He's like, "You're gonna take me alone? Well, then we'll just add to the village population." And they're like, "That's so freaking creepy." And he's like, "Don't tell anyone I said that. Please forget you heard that. Don't tell my boss." Again, it's like someone came in, like you said, someone came in, wrote a line in there, and then went back to the.
Yep.
That's weird.
And then everybody else is like, "How do we clean this up? How do other
Yeah.
characters respond to this?"
Then Sable goes and talks to the little boy's father that got hurt, and the father's like, "Yeah, I don't want you hanging out with my kid no more. Every time he's with you, bad things happen." And but then Tyrant captures Sable after that and runs off with him. Kudo and Holt chase after on crazy horses that Holt's like. Kudo's like, "I thought you said you could drive horses. They're moving, aren't they?" They get there and they try to battle him. He crushes their arms, beats them up. Now Holden, Los returns from the forest and finds Holden knocked out, and he's like, "Oh God!" She's like, "What did you do?" He's like, "Yeah, I released Tyrant, but the kids knocked me out, so I can't tell Tyrant to stop." So Tyrant's like, "Yeah, I can't kill you guys, but I can, as long as I keep you alive, I'm fulfilling my job, which is just to beat the crap out of you." Everyone shows up. They cut off Tyrant's arms and legs. The priest is like, "Yeah, we never really left. It was all a trap for your trap."
Mm-hmm.
The father or priest, he was like, "I have the high ground."
Yes. They just
Number
need
2.
some lava.
Second.
Yeah. Star Wars reference. Boom.
So Holden's like, "Yeah, this was all me. Sorry, I messed this up." But they're like, "Yeah, well, it does point out that we have a weakness. We're understaffed basically in protecting the village from everything that's coming." He's like, "Well, then use Tyrant. We have him. We can use him." And that's where the whole conversation comes. Like, "Oh, he's a villain." He's like, "Yeah, but if we force him to do our bidding, then he'll serve us." And Holt obviously has a big issue with it. We already kind of dealt with it.
Is this where we find out, or did we find out earlier that Priest and Tyrant were on the same team a long while back?
Like
I realized it later, but you're right, they were.
Yeah,
I
like,
don't-
well, I think in the interaction, like Tyrant called him out. He's like, the concealed. I'm supposed to fight the concealed. I've already lost. So like he knew him. Apparently that's Father's name. But yeah, it was kind of cool, especially when they showed the backstory and shows that Father's actually was pretty high ranked in it too, which I didn't
Hey,
expect.
we knew he was one of the arbiters
One of
because
the
he even points out his weapon. He's like, yeah, I had this from my Ignis, whatever their names were, days. So he's pointed out, I killed lots of people because that comes up in the conversation of, hey, this bad guy deserves to die. The priest is like, I was in the same spot, and you like me,
Yeah.
whatever. Um. Oh, I did forget to mention that Los found a young man in the forest stung by bees. They did set that up. The priest did mention we have a bee farm out in that forest.
Yeah.
And his face
And
is just
I-
all messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I totally forgot about the bee farm. I was wondering why the heck he was stung up.
I know. I thought he got beat up or something.
Yeah.
So this ends up being the guy who placed the remnants of the monster. So they decide they're going to use Tyrant, and they're keeping this boy captive. The priest comes and interrogates him, and apparently he's from the show Lie to Me. That's a cut. And he could read facial expressions when he questions you. So he's like, I
Yeah,
didn't
but he has to
actually
have the
learn
room
anything.
dark so he can take off his
Yeah.
edgy
Yeah.
coat.
Yep. He can have his cool silver eyes.
He's Vin Diesel in Pitch Black. He can see really good in the dark, but the light hurts his eyes.
You know, it's so weird because if you have a world where there's all these cool animal hybrids, right? Just giving a guy silver eyes just doesn't seem that cool anymore, right?
He should have been a cat.
Yeah.
And he
Should
could
have had
see
like
that
cat
better.
ears or something.
This character who's been in this whole anime, and all the characters know her. The teacher shows up, and she. And we already touched on that.
Like, I don't understand why she's also a lowly too. Like they didn't need her to be basically the same. It's like they took Los's character and just put a different hair and outfit on her. It was really weird to see that,
I
right?
didn't think I thought she was less lowly. She was just short, especially compared to Tyrant.
Well, I mean, she's the same exact height as
Is she?
it was. Yeah. Yeah,
Oh.
they stand next to each other in several scenes, and they're exactly the same height. It is so weird because normally when you have like a lowly character on scene, she's the only one because it's weird. So having a second one, I was like, "What are they doing?"
Wait,
I
I
did
did
like-
the teacher.
Yeah,
They weren't built the same.
it's true, but they were the same height.
I guess I was more like, I can't believe we have two hot redheads. I guess the artist had a thing for redheads.
Is that Hort?
Yeah, Holt and this teacher are both
Okay.
redheads,
Yeah.
and with big assets.
That's true. That's true. I
Yeah.
did like the scene where she's standing on a chair to talk to
Yeah.
Tyrant, and she's still only up to like the middle of his chest. That was very cute.
She takes Tyrant to go hang out with children, just to show him that
Yeah,
no one's
that's
afraid of
true
him.
With violent
God.
criminals.
Yeah.
Scared straight.
Just, you know, if they had said they have all this magic at their disposal, right? They could do anything with this magic system because they're writing the rules of how magic works and how sorcery works. They could have at least said, you know, we put some kind of magic restraints on him or some magic guards on him so that he can't harm the villagers. Then I would have been like, okay, he's there no matter what, he cannot harm these people. So it doesn't seem like a rash, reckless thing for them to be doing. But under the circumstances they presented it, it's very reckless and foolish. I mean, sure, you could say, what's he going to do? They'll kill him if he does it. The intimidation is enough. It's like a spell in itself. I just don't buy that. I don't think it's enough. He's an arbiter. If anybody has the skill to do it and get away, it'd be him.
This is also the episode where Sable gets his father's book. Zero gives it to him, tells him, it was my brother's book. I'm your aunt. That kiss with the saliva, that was weird. No need to think about it. Also,
Keep moving on.
and
They were like flicking tongues. That was so weird.
what I did like is that they pointed out the whole reason his father was evil is because he cared about his sister so much, and the whole point of making this child his whole existence was to create a battery to keep his sister alive. He found
Not with his sister, by the way.
no, nothing weird like that.
Yeah.
I'll clear that up.
he
The way
went
you were
out-
describing it.
He found a witch because Sable's memories have returned. I forgot that too. He went out and found a witch that he knew if he bred with her, the child would have unlimited magic, and then he could give that unlimited magic to his sister so that she wouldn't die from magic depletion. So
Why the
that's
heck wouldn't he have 2 kids? One for himself too. Like, if you're gonna be evil all the way.
if you're gonna be evil, be pragmatic about it. Come on.
Exactly. I mean,
Wait,
and
is
why
this-
let the wife die? Like, maybe he was dead by then. I don't know.
So is this Todoroki's father? Like,
Right? Yeah. Oh,
Uh,
that was a good one.
Kudo takes this boy whose name is Cody. Cody. It doesn't matter.
Caddy, Cody.
Caddy. He takes him for dinner at Lily's place. He's basically showing them that Beastmen aren't the horrible people he's been raised to think they are. Gives him a bed to sleep in. And Katie's like questioning all his beliefs while also getting a bad stomachache. And then they take him fishing. And meanwhile, Sable has been working on potions to do the same magic restoration that he does, but he's found out that he can melt people because in his memories he killed the witch who murdered his mom by melting her. So now he's afraid to touch anyone, so he's like, oh yeah, well we'll do it through potions instead. That'll be safer, which is probably true. And so he's testing that out with Los, but meanwhile all these kids are out fishing with Tyrant and the evil Cody. And he turns into a monster. He had a monster in his stomach, and these mouths are coming out of him, and claws are coming out of him. And so basically, Tyrant has to keep grabbing him and getting his limbs chopped off while everyone else is casting the spell. And they do have the scene of like, oh, they're gonna let me die. That's the smart thing to do. And they save him, and they keep trying different things. They like try to wall the creature in. It climbs out, and they eventually set it on fire. But then 100 little monsters burst out of the stomach. That was effective. That's scary.
Mm-hmm.
I have a fear of little things eating me to death.
Yeah, I was just frustrated at this whole scene because it's like, here we've got Holt like hesitating because she's like, oh, I told him I wouldn't kill him, but it's like he died a while ago and that thing burst out of his chest. Like,
I don't know. Their magic healing covers up a lot.
Maybe
they're thinking they can put him back.
I mean, they don't establish whether, like, I guess if the dismemberment later on with the heads is actual resurrection, but like, it didn't seem like, they didn't establish the rule that if you die, you can't be healed back. So
it was creepy.
Yep. But hey, Ludens is here and it eats all the monsters. Problem solved.
Deus Ex Machina staff.
Yeah.
All right, so the next 2 episodes are basically, hey, whoever's been doing this is about to attack us, has raised an army of 10,000.
How do they know this again?
They're marching.
Oh, okay. So scouts have seen them.
Right, because the dragon guy comes back and he's like, hey, you guys got to go back to school. There's an army coming. This is about to become a battlefield.
Oh, and here's your mail.
Oh, and here's your mail.
Mail.
You got your Amazon Prime package.
Right.
They basically are like, hey, we're not going back to the school. Sable's like, I'll quit the school if that means I can stay here and fight. But also, if I do that, could you think about putting me back in the school? Dude, if you're going to stand up for it, just stand up for it. Anyway, I don't know at what point they do this. This was a really weird episode because they're like starting to come up with a battle plan. They keep talking about Tyrant over and over again. Like, is he? The priest comes up to him and they do this whole metaphor about a tool. What about a tool? What about a tool that bites you? The only way to know is if you use the tool. Yeah, we get it. Just he's a tool. We get it. And then the teacher talks to him, and then Hort talks to him. It was 3 separate conversations with the same guy to establish the same thing.
That to me says that they know that the storytelling up to this point was really bad. They're trying so hard to be
Hold
like,
on,
okay, we really got to get this through.
Was Tyrant evil before this?
No, I'm just not really. I think I've forgotten because of all these conversations.
Well, one thing you may not know is Tyrant is the master of traps. He's a trap
Yeah.
master. And so now he's in charge of the traps to defend the village. Now, not only do they have to defend the village, they have to do it non-fatally. They can't kill anyone because remember, this is all about like we need to make witches look good. So if we're like, yeah, if we could slaughter an army of 10,000, they clearly have that power, but that'll just make everyone scared of them. So they come up with this big old plan to use traps and magic potions to stop an army of 10,000 without killing them. And they even like, hey, we need the church army to come and show up to feed and help the wounded that we're about to create because we just want to make sure everyone's taken care of. That's how. And I gotta be honest, I hated this scene. I hated this whole setup. New characters are introduced. There's a Birdman. Maybe he's from the other anime, but he shows up and they're like, yeah, Birdman, go deliver this message. And he's like, I don't want to. And I'm like, who is this guy?
Yeah. Yeah.
I love the quote-unquote non-fatal traps, and one of the first
Yes.
ones we see go off is a dude fall into a hole of spikes.
Yeah.
Right. Ugh.
Yeah, so the traps are cutting off only arms and legs, but
And legs.
everyone's
How do you miss
arms and legs.
heads? How do you miss heads?
Yep. But then magic healing ring comes down. That's part of it, and they all regrow their arms and legs. And then they wrote on the trees, "Boo! Did we scare you?"
I thought the goal was to keep them from being afraid of witches, right?
Right.
So like, we just cut your limbs off.
Traumatizing.
Yeah, and then we say boo. Be afraid.
And the next trap sets everyone on fire,
Yes.
but then they're all healed again, and they're all naked now.
Yeah, because it was so hot, it burned their armor off.
Right.
How do you heal from that?
And they were screaming in pain. So
Yeah.
they also had to go through the process of burning alive, and then we're healed back and like, but we didn't kill you, so we're cool.
Don't be
We
afraid
the
of
good
us.
guys.
Horrible.
Not scary at all.
So all the humans quit. The beastmen keep going, and they're led by a demon-possessed beastman. And this demon-possessed beastman kidnaps Lily. So mercenary and priest go and just start shredding people alive, cutting off heads. No longer doing the non-fatal thing.
Nope.
But hey, all the beastmen get to regrow their heads whenever the demon regenerates.
Pretty sure he's just using necromancy. Because they all have like red eyes and...
I was wondering whether this was like them getting healed by the demon magic, or were they being raised?
I think it's raised.
They
But I
don't
can't say for sure.
Beastmen reach the wall that they've built, and they're casting spells to stop them. Sable now can melt you if he touches you. Like he grabs a guy's arm and it just acid dissolves off. Holt shoots out her fire spell and burns everyone, and Kudo has to run out and start healing them because she overdid it.
I love how
Yeah.
she's like, precision. Oh.
Ooh,
oops.
too much.
Uh-huh.
And then this demon shows up, and so Zero is like, "Hey, I'll do the spell." She got a boost from Sable earlier, and she does this necromancy. 100 zombies come and eat you.
A lot more than 100.
Yeah, that was like a mountain.
Yeah. And she does the line of, "Guys, don't do this. Also, don't be evil. Necromancy." And then we go to the church camp that has been watching the whole battle, almost like it's a show, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, the little monsters that had burst from the guy's stomach show up, and one of the bishops is like, "Everyone, get to me! I have a ward. I can get. You'll be safe if you're with me." And then the Albus, the headmaster, she's like, "Hey, how could you have a ward for a demon thing that you didn't know about?" that's weird, because that means you're the bad guy, and then all the monsters jump on him anyway, and he's like, but I had the ward, and they're like, oh, it was all Ludens just pretending to be monsters, because they did establish she could make copies of them. And so he's busted, and Lois walks up to him, and she's like,
murders him.
she's like, you're forgiven, you can stay a bishop, eat the monster egg, and forces a monster egg into his belly. And everyone just watches this happen.
All's forgiven.
Yeah, I was like, this is so dark. This is
Isn't
so
that
dark.
going to make like 100 monsters?
Well,
Or
I mean, it'll
more?
make one inside of him, but yeah, it'll reproduce.
I was wondering if maybe it won't activate. It'll make it so he can never activate that ever again, because now it's in him, so that it'll always keep him from letting that remnant be active.
That's a very interesting idea, but I didn't see anything indicating
You're right. I made that up.
that.
Is this the birth of the xenomorphs on this planet?
It was just so weird that everyone was just watching her slowly murder this man and shove a monster egg into his mouth.
Yes. Another thing I thought was weird, but like just strikingly funny to me was the quote unquote princess. I don't know if that was like her witch name or whatever, but she was literally sitting on the back of her servant because he was a centaur, and I didn't realize that until the picture like panned out and swiveled to the side, and I'm like, wait, I had to rewind it. I'm like, is she on a horse that's like next to him and he's hiding the horse because he's standing? Oh no, he's the horse. She's on him. Oh my god. It was
Okay,
just so weird.
So this anime now has to wrap up all this storyline in like 5 minutes, and it does. And the 3 students graduate. Hey,
I think it's a
yeah,
trap.
they're not even sure they're allowed to be happy about graduating because there might be another test. And they're assigned to the Forbidden Library, which is something that had been talked about before. It's up north in the dangerous part. That lets them all 3 do what their goals for their career were. They say goodbye to everyone in the village. Tyrant's going to stay behind. He's going to stay in the village. And they're carried in a stagecoach that's delivered by the Amazon Prime guy.
Yes.
He's flying them.
Freight shipping.
Yeah. And they're like, I wish Professor Loss could come with us. And she's riding on the back of a wagon down below them, heading in the exact same direction. So it's kind of implied that she's going that way.
Yep.
Also, Sable decoded his father's book because he realized if you just replace the number 13 with the number 0, everything works. Because his dad's name was 13 and his aunt's name was 0.
Obsession much?
Yeah. Maybe I don't want to watch that anime.
Right?
Anyway, that's the end. Oh, yeah, everyone loves mages now because they're like, isn't it cool they didn't kill anyone and 10,000 people suck?
I don't know how everybody's not more terrified of mages and more inclined to want to exterminate them because of the huge power gap.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was like 3 students and just 2 mages.
Yeah.
And that's all it took to decimate a 10,000 person army in almost no effort.
Right. To the fact that they were writing funny jokes on the trees and
Yeah. Yeah, that to me sounds like something that leads up to a huge revolt.
This battle's also really anticlimactic. There's no cost to it. It was just super easy, barely an inconvenience. to steal a joke.
There.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Wow.
Now we're just doing okay. So we gotta stop. Straight up plagiarism at this point. All right, let's go to our final review.
Plagiarism is tight.
But,
Sorry, couldn't know myself.
Jason, you picked this anime. You get to review it first.
Yeah, just I was bored. I think that's the best way I could put it. It wasn't awful. Like I didn't have any like I didn't have much good to say about it, but I don't have a ton of bad as well, except for the opinions I've already given. And it's like I'm having a tough time rating it because I'm like, how do I feel about this anime? I feel like this is one of those animes I'm just gonna forget that I even watched 6 months from now. I kind of walked into the show thinking a 3, but now I'm gonna bring it down to a 2. It wasn't anything special, and they just kind of made it the below the not special. So it's not even middle of the road for me. I couldn't recommend this to anybody.
Jeremy, how about you?
Yeah, same boat. I'm definitely a solid 2 on this one. I think it's got a huge amount of potential. Um, Although I will say that the world, the setting, kind of feels a little bit small, just in the sense that we've been exposed to the two factions, and it doesn't. I'm not seeing any indication that there's anything beyond the two factions. Which, in 12 episodes, if you're including some kind of political intrigue, I would expect to at least see a little bit of.
Yeah.
This world is a little bigger than these two groups. So even in that, I kind of think it falls short of what it could be. Um, yeah, I wish I could say. I wanted to say that the characters were good, but they're not. They're not good. It's just like instinct to be like, hey, there's this positive thing, but but yeah, I can't really find anything. So it's a solid 2 for me. Um, Having been my first exposure to this series, I'm actually not even interested in going and watching Grimoire of Zero now. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll probably read about. I'll probably spoil myself because this I want to know more about Mercenary and Zero and how
Mm-hmm.
that all went down. I'm a 2 as well. Another solid 2. I love the history they gave the world and how it plays into their theme. I just think they didn't explore the theme very well. There's so much in the setup that's genius and smart, and like the character setup. There's characters that are interesting, and then they don't talk about those characters, and they have like this super bland character, and they focus so much time on him. There's so many mistakes in the storytelling that I feel, despite what they built for the foundation is really good. But yeah, I had a hard time getting through it. Yeah, that's the 2 for me. All right, our next anime is I'm Quitting Heroing. If you missed that announcement somehow before, that is what we'll be watching and then discussing on our next podcast. Thank you for listening. If you have comments on Dawn of the Witch or want to maybe educate us on Grimoire of Zero, you can leave any comments on our Twitter at Baka Podcast, our website, theanimebakaclub.com, or leave a comment wherever you found the podcast, and that'll get back to us, and we'll be happy to respond. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I think it's time we say goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
You passed the test. Good job.
Sayonara.